Sorry if it looks like I'm in a hotel room because guess what?
You are.
I'm in a hotel room.
Yeah. I love it. Hey, you're a traveling man. You got things to do. You're busy. That's a good sign. Or you're on
Yesterday,
the run, right?
yeah,
Who's chasing you? Men in Black? Is that what's going on, James?
keeping it moving, keeping it moving.
Never in one place for one
No,
night. I
no,
love it.
yeah, keep it moving.
I
Keep them
love
off
it.
the trail.
Keep 'em off the trail, man. Listen, after this latest this film you have, I see why.
It
You
was the
know.
scariest production I've ever done, and not just what was on camera, but things that were happening off camera as well.
I
You
can
know,
imagine. Is that one of the most, yeah, I guess, sort of remote, sort of out there places that you filmed?
no, I've filmed all over. I've been to Australia, Africa, China, but I've never been threatened to be shot in the face like on any production I've ever done, and by someone who was very serious.
Sure,
You know,
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
and I had been told that that witness was nearly impossible to track down, and even the family of the people. We can get into it later, but the family of the passenger that was with him, he won't even talk to them. And he gets
Wow.
really nervous. So somebody got to him and put the kibosh down. He'd been hiding, and I could see it in his face when I saw him. You don't really pick that up as much in the camera, but I was looking him in the eyes, and I thought to myself, "Well, this guy has been harboring something very significant for a very serious, a long time. Crazy."
I do want to get into that
Yeah, yeah.
here
Sorry,
in a
I'm
little bit.
getting.
No, no,
Yeah,
but trust me, because I have a question about what he was holding in his hand. Um,
I. You're not alone.
that
We
was
were
my
all
first thought.
speculating.
Yeah, that was my first. I was like, let me zoom in on this. What is
I
going on
know.
here?
Yeah.
This looks crazy. No, yes, for sure. Again, this was such a. I got to say, the way you built up the film as I'm watching, like the way it builds up, it just grows. The tension builds and builds and builds and builds. It's just so good, man. It's so revealing. So yes, congratulations on another wonderful film. Shout out
Thank
to the
you.
last one, The Phenomenon. Also amazing. Absolutely loved it. Huge fan. That was my first film to see of yours, and man, I just can't wait to see what else you got coming out. Unbelievable,
I'm going to
really.
start shooting my next film in November.
Dude, I love that. Look at that. Listen,
Going to
that's gonna
strike while
make
the
that
iron's
makes
hot.
people happy. That just makes people happy, man. I mean, maybe not, being at home for you, but for the rest of us, we get to enjoy your fruits. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Look,
Yeah.
let's jump into this. This film is about specifically, well, sort of like Brazil encounters, but specifically one in 1996 in am I saying this right?
Varginha.
Varginha, right? Which is just like Virginia. Is it the
Var-
same word?
Varginha.
Yeah, Virginia. But does it mean Virginia in English?
God,
Like from the
I'm not
state
sure. How do you
Virginia?
spell Virginia? It's a very good question. I've never been
I
asked that. I don't
I
know.
think it comes from that. I speak Spanish, like I'm also
Oh,
Mexican.
okay.
You say Virginia in Spanish, right? So, and a lot of like Portuguese, Brasileño is not all the way, but I can understand like 20%, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's the same word anyway.
Yeah. No, you might be yeah, you're on to something there.
So anyway, I thought that was interesting, but so it's specifically sort of about. And I never heard about this. That's what I found most. I never heard about this, so I was completely
It's
blank on the
crazy.
subject going into this. Right, I didn't know any. I had no preconceived notions or things I'd seen. And yes, even go so far as to like they captured some beings or something like reportedly. This takes like a whole turn right in this documentary. Can you give us just like a brief overview of maybe just the initial encounter in 1996, just so we can like wrap our heads around or get a foundation
Absolutely.
here?
So I have to start off by saying that I don't expect your audience to believe anything I'm about to say. Because if I were you, I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
I think that's the first time anyone started a podcast like that with me. I love it. I love it.
Because I didn't. I didn't. It took me 10 or 12 years just to look into it. In 1996, January, I think it was like the evening of the 12th, January 12th, or early in the morning on the 13th, there were a number of people who witnessed an object that looked like a cigar shaped object, and it had a gash in the side of it. It looked like it was in trouble. It didn't make any noise. It was flying very, very slowly. No wings, no tail, no visible means of propulsion. It had like a vapor coming out the side and a gash in it. according to the witnesses. That, let's see, the morning of the 13th, probably around 5 a.m., a gentleman by the name Carlos de Souza, he was a pilot on those little ultralight airplanes, and he was driving up into the state of Minas Gerais, which is to the north of Sao Paulo by about 4 or 5 hours. And he was going to go meet some friends, and he was just outside of a town called Varginha, and he sees this object over him on the free. He was on the freeway up over a hill off to the one side, and he's thinking, "My God, that thing's in trouble." What that? Never once did it dawn on him that it was of, other origin. Right? He just thought maybe military plane or something special operation. He didn't know, but he saw it go down, and he was like, "That thing just crashed." So he turned off the freeway and he went to investigate. And he arrived. I don't know how much detail you want me to go in, but basically he arrives on a field of metallic foil-like material, and then a large part of the object still intact. And he picked up some of this paper, and he said the smell was so putrid. It was ammonia and sulfur so bad that he had to get his shirt and put it over his mouth. Wow. And his eyes were watering. And he picked up a piece of this material, and he said you couldn't really feel it in your hands. He said it was light as foil, but just didn't weigh anything. And he crumpled one piece of it up, I think it's about that big, and it just regained on its own. And as that was happening, he still wasn't thinking extraterrestrial.
Why would you?
Why would you? And then the military arrived coming from the opposite direction from a military base called Eza military base. That was the center of operations. They came, they threatened him, they pointed a gun at him. You didn't see what you saw, get out of here. He thought, well, that was all. He frighteningly gets into a car, off he goes. 7 days later, in the town of Varginha, which is roughly 12 to 15 miles away, people, both military and civilian, witnessed these strange beings that they thought maybe were the devil. They didn't know what these creatures were, but they were feeble. They were scared. They were cowering. They were not doing well. They had oily blue skin, big red eyes, spindly arms and legs, weak. They were not threatening at all. I interviewed 3 young women from 14 to 21, Katya and Valkyria and Liliani. 2 of them were sisters, and they came within 8 to 10 feet of this creature in broad daylight. We went to the site, but there were lots of other operations. Military cordoned off the town, and there were and these beings were captured and
separately, right? Like separately.
Yeah, they were captured separately. Yeah, I think one was shot and the other one was just captured. We can go into that if you.
No, for sure. I mean, really, I just want to go however far you want into that.
Oh, I'm happy to go further. So there were for the first time, and I'm told this by Brazilian researchers, and I went to Brazil for a month 4 times in investigating this case.
Wow.
Over a 12-year period, and quite honestly, when I'd heard about this case, probably for the first time in the late 90s. From a co-producer of a film I did called Out of the Blue, this guy, Tim Coleman. He told me. And I just thought to myself, Tim, seriously, a UFO crashes and you got these live beings walking around the town. I was like, come on, man. And I just refused to even look into it because I just thought this so unlikely.
It does sound, it sounds right. It sounds surreal.
Absolutely. That's why I'm telling your audience, don't believe anything I'm saying.
Yeah.
I really mean that.
Yeah.
But when you hear the testimony, when you go there and you hear the reports from these witnesses, both military, civilian, firemen, local media, pretty compelling.
I agree. I concur, man.
Pretty damn compelling.
It's just a lot of, my first thought of all of that is thinking, okay, that's just a lot to coordinate all of them together. Let's lie on this together. We don't even know each other. Why are we going to all lie? You know what I mean?
People have no idea. Not one signal. Not one witness, not one, wasn't a fight to get to go on camera. And some of them, we spent the better part of 10 years. Carlos de Souza, who watched it crash, he gave one statement briefly to a UFO researcher in 1996 and then vanished for 26 years. And my partner, Marco Leal, who's been my boots on the ground, and a couple of other fellow Brazilian researchers found him and managed over time to slowly get him to convince him to come forward again after 26 years. Other witnesses, like the doctors, they'd never gone on camera before. We found them. Marco had found them and spent 7, 8, 9 years trying to get them to come forward. The military guy who allegedly drove one of those creatures around, Military X, that guy said he's never going to come forward.
That was the craziest interview. That one right there was just like, wow.
We had a window in time, a sliver about that wide, barely opening. And I looked over and we were in Varginha and he was way to the north. And I said, just meet me. Let me look you in the eyes and let's look each other in the eyes, kind of thing. And he agreed to do that. And so we jumped in the car at night and drove up there. And long story short, we got him to come forward, and he's been the most sought after witness, and he was never going to come ever. He was going to take it to his grave. And the fact that
it's powerful. His testimony is powerful. Absolutely. Especially y'all taking him to the site and the emotional response. Oh, so incredible. So genuine and emotional. And emotional, the camera pans to you and you're getting emotional. I'm getting emotional. I'm watching the thing. I'm like, Jesus, it must be a crazy memory for him.
Oh my gosh. Right? Could you imagine?
Yeah. Just a flood of emotion and memories being there too. Having a hard time finding it and almost giving up for a split second. There's this moment where it's just like almost giving up, and then you just kept pushing. You know what? Let's just go down this hill. Let's keep. I'm so glad you did that.